Hello everybody and welcome to Civ Haus. I'm Rob and today we're going to be talking about new potential leaders that could be added to Civilization 7. And what I mean by that is we just got Edward Teach, also known mythically or legendarily as Blackbeard. And it got me thinking, are there any sort of other people who we've had who are maybe real, probably real, but who were given this sort of mythological, legendary sort of status? And I wanted to take you guys through 3 different options that I think could be added into the game. Before we dive any deeper, make sure you guys like and subscribe as always, and let me know in the comments section below which people do you think could be added. I might make another one of these videos in the futures. But yeah, that's really what I wanted to get into. Let's just hop into it here. With Tides of Power, we got Blackbeard, and we've gotten leaders like this in the past. We're even going to revisit one from an older Civilization game. But I felt like this really opens the door for a lot of different options that they could have in the future. Because Edward Teach was a leader of sorts, but he's more just kind of encompassing, right, the most well-known of all the pirates in the world. And I feel like this really makes it so that there could be some more fun options that could come to Civilization in the future. And I've taken a couple of different people who I thought could be really good for this. And there are more that I have, like seriously, like a few more that I have in the background. But I thought that I would bring these to you guys more as ones that I think could realistically be added to the game. And we could kind of discuss what all that they would end up being like in terms of, oh, sorry guys, pulling up a few things here. In terms of like what their, you know, what their attributes could be, you know, if they're going to be, you know, militaristic or scientific or economic, whatever it may be. And I thought that this would be a good opportunity to do that. So yeah, let's get into the first one here, and that is going to be, as you guys can see, good old Joan of Arc. Now, you may not know this because it depends on how long you've been playing Civ, but this is actually one of the first ones that I remember because Civ 3 was my first game. But Joan of Arc was the leader of France in Civilization 3, and while what I really loved about Civ 3 was that, like, as through the ages, your character would actually change their look. I really wish that they would bring something like this back because I think it would be really cool for them to do that. But with her, you know, being in the game, it signified, I think she was one of really the first ones to be not technically like an actual like leader of a nation, but more so like a spiritual leader and even just a leader in battle. There's a mythos that surrounds her. And, you know, she kind of opened the initial doorway in my mind. And again, I can't say for sure with Civs 1 and 2, but I know for Civ 3, at least in my mind, this is when the door opened. And I think that they should bring her back. This is a really good opportunity to do so, because while she is obviously attached to France, I feel like there's a lot more opportunity for her as an overall leader of, you know, multiple different Civs, where they could make something really cool for her. And I have said this way too many times at this point. I know you guys are probably sick of me, but I do think she would provide a great opportunity for them to bring religion into the game. And so if they were to do that, I think her attribute could be religion or religious in terms of, you know, what she could be. And religious and militaristic, I think, would be her big ones, obviously. And I think that that would provide a really new bit of gameplay. If they were not to do that, right, then she could be more of a cultural leader instead. So, you know, there's a couple different ways they could go, but militaristic and something to do with cultural or religion would make the most sense. And it'd be really cool to see her being able to maybe buff units, you know, with different priests or different religious units that maybe they would add to the game in the future, right? And allowing them to kind of, you know, roam around with people. And I know that they've already had that kind of in the game in different senses, but maybe making it so that it would be like a specific unit for her in some way or another. They could also give her a leader bonus. What would be really cool, and hear me out on this, would be if she's an actual leader and she could be, one of your commanders down on the field. That would be really cool too. I feel like that would bring something very unique to the game. I know we kind of had that with Trung Trok, and her sister, but this would be really cool if like she's your leader and she's leading on the battlefield. Obviously, I'm sure if she, died or got knocked out, we all know commanders come back and everything, so you wouldn't be totally out of the game or anything, but it would just be a really cool and unique thing to see her leading up, and on the front lines in that sort of way. So that was my idea for her. The next one would be good old King Arthur. Now, King Arthur is, I think, the king of mythical and mystical types of thing. Him and his round table, and that's really where we would go with this. Is I think his round table chivalry, all that stuff would be part of his kit. Obviously, he would be militaristic. I don't really know what else you would want to put him with. I guess you could maybe do cultural, but that would be kind of boring. I would actually like to see them maybe do wild card or not economic, or expansionist. I could see those kind of being the attributes that he would get, but he was there in the Heroes game mode for Civilization 6. I really didn't know that. I just kind of looked this up on a whim. Like, did they ever add King Arthur as a leader or, as a Civ in the past? And they didn't, but they did have him as a unit in Civ 6. So that was really cool, but, I would like to see him get there, be there in the game. Maybe the Knights of the Round Table, like we've seen now with multiple different, civs, that you can have certain units, right, that bring you certain bonuses. What if he did something like that as well? That would be something really cool. And again, I know that both of these leaders are acting a little bit more like civs in my explanation, but that would be kind of the change that they would make, is that along with the different civs that you would have, you would also get these leader bonuses, for King Arthur. So, you could get, Galahad or something like that, who would be down there leading your, units as their commander, but maybe you would only get them like one time throughout the game, so you'd have to really pick when you would use them. Something like that I think would be really cool. If not, some sort of chivalry or something to do maybe even with a sword in the stone, as an ability that, it would be named Sword in the Stone, and maybe there would be something to do, I don't even know, with a certain way that you'd have to unlock it, like a little bit of a harder way in the game, but then it would give you like a huge bonus, or your people, like happiness would be maybe attached to him as well, so you could go cultural in that regard. But I'm just spitballing here because I do think it would be an interesting person to have in the game, and to have him, Arthur Pendragon could be his name, and then King Arthur could be what he goes by. So I think this would be a really fun one, and one that I think realistically, based on the fact that they even have the model in there, and they have like this image on Civ, like this would be a really cool addition to the game. Now, the last one is going to be maybe potentially a controversial one, but I think it would also be one of the most fun ones. And somebody already made this in the Steam Workshop, I found, so I want to give them credit. I believe their name is JDF, is that right? Let me check here. It's somewhere around here. It's like, yeah, JFD's. Sorry, JFD's Civilizations. They made Rasputin for Russia in Civilization 6. And while, the different features and abilities would be different, I could see him being cultural and economic, which I think would actually be very funny because he likes to steal from people and, uses these fake different things about his religion and stuff to kind of overthrow people and take people over. And he would be another sort of, actually, almost diplomatic would be better. Cultural diplomatic would actually be better now that I'm thinking about it, because then he could be kind of like Napoleon was, and you're able to use diplomacy more to kind of like almost even like take over governments, or like, he had different spies and everything around, as well as he infiltrated, I think would be a better way to put it, all of these different governments. And I would really love to see this, because I think it would be interesting, because he has created a sort of mythos to a certain degree. Even his I'm going to call it member, is available for people to see, I believe, in Russia or in some sort of museum somewhere. And there's, this mystique that surrounds him, in the last royal family of Russia. So I feel like he would be a really interesting leader for them to add, one that people would, strongly dislike, but one that I think would be able to add such a different sort of layer, to the game. And really and truly, like, he fits the sort of leaders that we have. And let's be real, it doesn't matter if it had been Russia, Australia, China, the United States, wherever he could have gotten his claws in, he would have gone and tried to get his way into that government. It's just so happened that the easiest one was Russia because he happened to live there, and they ended up being the most vulnerable at the time. So I think that it would be really fun to see him in the game. I know I would probably do a playthrough as Rasputin, and I think it would be absolutely hysterical. So yeah, I mean, these are the three that I thought would be the most fun to talk about, the most interesting ones. If there are other ones that you would like, I know Mulan was one that I was thinking about. William Wallace, right, has been portrayed in very different sorts of ways. And I think there's just so many other, people who are almost mythical, but who were probably real. King Arthur, I know, is a bit more of a stretch, to say the least, but the rest of them, it would make sense. So let me know if you guys would think this would be interesting. Who would you add into the game of these three? And do you have any other suggestions for ones that maybe you would like to see for Civ to do in the future? But that is going to wrap it up for us on this one. So from our house to yours, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join us for one more turn.